All right, let's get right into it. If you're working in AWS, you've probably stared at this exact fork in the road, ECS or EKS. They're both incredibly powerful ways to run your containers, but man, they are different beasts. So let's map out this territory and figure out which path is the right one for you.
So you've done the smart thing, you've jumped on the container train. It's great, right? You've got your app and all its bits and pieces tucked into these tidy, portable little boxes. But then reality hits. How do you actually deploy hundreds of these things? How do you scale them up when traffic spikes, connect them all together, and make sure they don't all fall over? That is the exact problem that container orchestration was built to solve.
And the answer? Well, it's this thing called container orchestration. Think of it as the genius conductor of your container orchestra. It's the brain that automates the whole show, the deployment, the scaling, all the messy networking stuff. It does the heavy lifting so your applications run smoothly and reliably without you having to manually babysit every single container.
Now, inside the world of AWS, this brings us to a huge decision. Amazon gives you two main contenders for this job. There's the Elastic Container Service, which we call ECS, and the Elastic Kubernetes Service, or EKS. They both tackle the same core problem, but their philosophies completely different.
To really get a handle on this, let's use an analogy that I think makes it all click. Think of ECS as the guided tour. It's a fantastic, all-inclusive package designed by AWS. They've paved the roads, they've picked the highlights, and they make sure you have a great, smooth trip. EKS, on the other hand, is the build-your-own-adventure. It's like they hand you a top-of-the-line 4x4, a compass, and a map of the entire wilderness and say, go nuts, build whatever path you want.
So, what's this guided tour all about? Well, ECS is AWS's own special take on orchestration. It's built from the ground up for one thing, simplicity. The killer feature is how seamlessly it plugs into everything else AWS. Your load balancers, your monitoring tools, your security groups, it all just works. It uses a pretty straightforward concept called a task, which is basically just a blueprint for how to run your app's containers. If you're used to the AWS way of doing things, it feels incredibly familiar.
Now, for the build-your-own-adventure. EKS is basically AWS's service for running Kubernetes, which is the big, open-source industry standard. This means you get maximum flexibility, absolute control. Instead of simple tasks, you get pods. A pod is a more powerful concept. It can hold multiple containers that need to work closely together, sharing resources. It's perfect for complex apps. And here's the real kicker. Because it's standard Kubernetes, what you build on EKS can be picked up and moved to another cloud or even your own servers. You are not locked in. Okay, so we've got our two travel plans. Let's pull out the map and do a direct head-to-head comparison across the things that really matter when you're making this choice. As you look at this breakdown, that analogy really holds up, doesn't it? For platform integration, ECS is just native to AWS. It's a first-class citizen. With EKS, you're integrating an open-source tool, so it takes a bit more work. For scalability and security, ECS leans on familiar AWS tools that your team probably already knows. EKS gives you more powerful, fine-grained Kubernetes tools, but your team has to know them. And that brings us to complexity. ECS has a much lower learning curve. It's just simpler. EKS is powerful, but that power comes from its complexity. You're not just picking a service, you're picking a learning curve for your whole team. Okay, hang on. There's another layer to this, a little twist in the story called Fargate. Now, this is super important. Fargate is not a third option. It's not another path. Think of it as your mode of transport. You can choose to use Fargate whether you're on the ECS tour or the EKS adventure. So what on earth is Fargate? In one word, serverless. It's a compute engine that lets you run your containers without ever thinking about the underlying servers. I mean it, no provisioning servers, no patching them, no managing capacity. You just package your container, tell Fargate how much CPU and memory it needs, and it runs. You only pay for exactly what you use when it's running. It's kind of magical.
But, nothing's free, right? This magic comes with trade-offs. The massive pro is that your developers can just focus on writing code, not managing infrastructure. But the con? You give up control. If you're in an industry with really strict compliance rules, you might need that low-level server access. You also have fewer knobs to turn for networking. And that pay-for-what-you-use model? Well, if your app's resource needs are unpredictable, you could be in for some cost surprises.
Okay, let's bring it all home. We have the guided tour with ECS, the build-your-own-adventure of EKS, and the serverless mode of transport with Fargate. So now let's figure out how you actually choose the right path for your team, right now.
Okay, this is the first, most important question to ask. And you gotta be honest,
Is your team pretty new to this whole container orchestration world? Or is the number one most critical thing for you to get your application up and running on AWS as fast as humanly possible? Your answer here is going to point you very strongly in one direction.
If your answer was yes, then ECS, our guided tour, is almost certainly your best bet. It's the perfect choice when your team doesn't have a bunch of Kubernetes experts on staff. It's ideal when you're already all in on the AWS ecosystem and you want everything to just connect seamlessly. And it's the winner when your main goal is simplicity and keeping your operational headaches to a minimum.
But what if that's not you? Let's flip the coin. What if you're playing the long game? What if you need the flexibility to maybe run this on another cloud provider next year? What if your engineers need to tweak every single knob and dial to get the performance and architecture just right?
If that's your world, then EKS, the Build Your Own Adventure, is calling your name. This is the path for teams that already speak fluent Kubernetes. It's for when your strategy demands that you avoid being locked into a single vendor. And it's for when you're building a truly complex microservices application that needs all the power and fine-grained control that Kubernetes pods can give you.
So you've made your choice. ECS for simplicity, EKS for control. You're ready to go. But the last thought I want to leave you with is this. The choice you make today is for the application you have today. But what about tomorrow? As your application grows and changes, is that simple guided tour going to start to feel a bit restrictive? Or is that epic build-your-own adventure going to become too complex to manage? Thinking about where you're headed next, that's the real key to making the best decision right now.